So if you look underneath the examples on 10.5, you'll see the blurbs that go along with both of those things. The metric placement and contour goes with 10.5a, and the sample analysis goes with 10.5b. So we're going to move on, because we've already talked about that. And at the top of 286, it talks about that phrase model. We just talked about that too. So now let's go to page 286, the accented neighbor tone, the AN. This is not nearly as common as accented passing tones, but they still happen. So let's take a peek now down at 10.6. Start off with letter A. The analysis is 1 chord, 5/6 to 1. Sing the bass notes. So it's on do, do, ti, do. So the middle chord on beat 2 is a neighbor chord. It's flanked by 2 1 chords in root position, and it went do, ti, do in the bass, so neighbor chord. Now let's just see if we can make it a little more exciting. So look at letter B. We're going to ornament it a bit. Okay, so we've got upper neighbor, passing in the melodic realm. So the way you write that is a 1 chord with a 5 to 6 melodic motion, and then the 5/6/5 chord with a 6 to 5 motion. And you're basing it off of the bass and the soprano to get those numbers, okay? So C up to G, that's the 5 moving to the 6, C up to A. The next bar is B up to G, so that's where you get the 6. Moving down to B to F is a 5. So those voice leading numbers 5-6 and 6-5 are based again upon the bass note and the soprano part interactions. Now let's just swap the neighbor and the passing in letter B, which are on the unaccented parts of beats, back or forwards by a half step. Back or forward by a half of a beat, so that now they fall on a strong part of the beat. Okay, listen to letter C. I will play A, B, and C together now, and you'll see again it's a continuum from left moving to the right, where it gets more and more interesting using these basic ornaments that were on a plain letter A. Now, I'm going to play A, B, and C together from left to right. So you can see it as a continuum from letter A, which is very plain and simple, through B, where we have unaccented ornaments, to C, where they are accented. And you decide which one you like the best. Ready, set, go. A, you notice that the analysis stayed nearly the same on A, B, and C. It was a little bit different in letter B because we had to call it 5/6/5 because it had a B, D, F, and a G in it, whereas on beats 2 in letters A and C it did not. But otherwise, the harmonic analysis is the same. It's just the voice leading was different. Let's move to the top of page 287. This is the chromatic neighbor tone. The chromatic neighbor is highly dissonant and yet very beautiful. So if you look at example 10.7, it says it recasts the diatonic neighbors from example 10.6 as chromatic neighbors. So we just played. Now we're going to play this one. So let's look at letter A. This is the same as the previous page. Here's the unaccented chromatic. It's A flat instead of A natural. Letter B. Letter C. That's called modal mixture. When so let's say you're in a major key and you throw in a chord that is more diatonic to the minor key, because letter C, if it were in minor, then that A flat would be native to the minor mode. But letter C is in major, so we borrowed A flat. Or the major mode. That is beautiful. Oh, I love that. Listen again. Here it comes. Okay, so CAN is again, so CAN means chromatic accented neighbor, and APT is accented passing tone. I don't know if we're going to see can after this chapter or not, but for now, that's what these stand for, so you know what we're talking about. Go down now to the interlude. Let's move now to 10.8. See where it says analytical interlude? One frequently encounters accented and chromatic passing and neighbor tones in various sets written in the late classical and romantic periods. These are called theme and variations, and this kind of a format was very popular, especially in the the 1780s and 90s and into the 1800s and beyond. It had a good 50-year run to it. And so these variation sets started off with a simple theme, and then each variation progressively got more interesting, maybe with different rhythms, and eventually if it were cast in major mode, it would go into a variation in minor mode, which made, for a contrast in the mode and more dramatic stuff in there, and then it would end with a really fancy show-offy variation at the end. So here's a famous one by Schubert. This is what the theme sounds like. It's in B flat major. So I want you to look at the outer edge. This time I want you to look at the outer edges, bass and soprano. This is why we did species counterpoint. So you can learn to hear and also to compose outer voices. This stuff in the middle is just filler. Okay, so sing either the bass line or the soprano line right now. Ready? Sing. Okay. Now let's go to the next page. Listen to variation 1. I'm going to play the outer voices first. Okay, what do we have there? We have between bass and soprano an 8. And now we have 7 down to 6. You hear the 7, 6. It comes right out of 4 species counterpoint. So it sounds like this with all the other parts. Now let's look at letter C. This is variation 3. Actually, I don't know why we didn't do variation 2 first. So I'm switching the plan here. So we just did variation 1, which had an accent passing tone in it, creating a 7 to 6 suspension figure. Now let's go down to letter D, which is variation 2. We got a bunch of stuff in here, okay? Chromatic neighbor, accented chromatic neighbor, because it comes on a B. Here's an anticipation with the G hit twice. That's an accented incomplete neighbor, he calls it. We're going to be calling that something else in a minute. Accented passing and another accented passing. Chromatic passing and accented incomplete neighbor. Here's how we got that. It was moving by step, and it jumped up to the A, and then did a half of a neighbor right there. So when you so remember the original was simple like this. Now look at letter D again. And that's how you ornament a line. Now let's go back to letter C, which is variation 3. This one goes to the minor mode. So the top went B flat, C, B flat. That's an accented passing tone because it's on the beat. Oops. Here we go. All right, there you go. So we had all sorts of interesting ways that Schubert went ahead and ornamented that beautiful melody of his.